I'm Mike from Hobby, and today we're building a section of Fangorn Forest for our Middle-earth gaming table. To get started, I prepared a 1 foot by 1 foot base using XPS foam. If you want to create a larger forest, just repeat this process to build a modular section that fits together seamlessly. So I sketched out a rough plan with some worn paths, a few carefully placed trees, and added details like a tree stump. You'll see me using a miniature for scale to size the paths properly. Fangorn is old, very old, and after a bit of research I found that ancient trees often have visible roots raised above the soil due to erosion or natural compaction over time. To recreate that look, I cut out small raised foam platforms for where the trees will go and glued them down with hot glue. Next, let's add some texture to the ground. I placed dollops, yes, that's a technical term, and drop in some larger stones. I'm just using sand from a DIY shop that I sifted into different sizes. It's cheap and you get loads of it. Once the larger rocks are placed, I cover the rest of the base with finer grit sand. I thought I'd try giving the path a little different texture using actual dirt from my garden. I sifted it and oven dried, but in the end it all blended together with the sand. So honestly, you can skip this step and just stick with the sand. Once the glue has dried, I knock off the excess. If any spots didn't stick properly, I just go back in with more glue and fill the gaps with sand. A while back I showed how to make trees from wire. That worked really well, so I'm using the same technique here with a few improvements, especially for creating the exposed roots. I cut 10 pieces of wire and bent them in half. The longer the wire, the taller your tree. Twist them together to form the trunk, then gradually separate strands outwards for branches. At the bottom I use wire snips to cut the ends and spread them out to form the roots. You can twist some of those roots together for more variety. Then I cover the entire frame with masking tape. This forms the base of our bark texture. I built a few more trees and even reused a couple from previous build. Hot glue works well for fixing them down. I placed glue under the centre and under the roots, then pressed the root ends into the terrain for a more natural look. This is a new step I've added when making trees. I wasn't always happy with how the masking tape looked. It can leave a straight line that doesn't look or feel organic. So I mixed up some filler with water to create a thin paste and applied it all over the tree and roots. Highly recommended wearing gloves here. It gives a much more natural, uneven texture to the bark. I designed a tree stump in Blender and printed it on the resin printer. I make some hanging vines by unravelling hemp string, dipping it in Mod Podge, then rolling it in sawdust flock. I twist these around the branches for a wild, overgrown look. For the smaller branches and foliage, I'm using fake moss lichen glued onto the branch ends with a hot glue gun. I'm not adding too much. I like the idea of Fangorn being an old, somewhat weathered forest, so I don't want it to look too lush or healthy. I prime everything in black, then give it a zenithal highlight with a lighter grey to bring out the textures. Also, quick tip, always put the cap back on your airbrush. Terrain eats up a lot of paints and you don't want to waste your expensive hobby paints, so I made some colour swatches using Gawthor Brown and Mournfang Brown, took them to my local DIY store, asked them to match a tester pot using the mattest paint they have. Now I've got loads of paint, perfect for terrain. I dry brush the terrain using Mournfang Brown mix, then switch to the Gawthor Brown for highlights, especially focusing on the paths. For the foliage, I randomly pick a few shades of green ink and airbrush paint, spraying them onto the leaves. The more colour variation, the better. Another tip, when I'm at the DIY store I check for reduced sample pots. I've picked up loads of useful colours for just 50p each. I grabbed a grey one for dry brushing the stones. I also 3D printed a little bunny to tuck into the forest just because I thought it was cute. Layering is key when it comes to making terrain come alive, so I got some sawdust flock, then added twigs and crushed leaves around the bases of the trees. Next, I use a static grass applicator to add dark grass, then layer in some moss using foam flock. We now get a richer variety of textures and colours. To unify the tones, I mix some skim wash with black ink and spray a light coat over everything. I wasn't completely happy with the tree colour, so I went back and adjusted the tones. Now it's all about the finishing touches, adjusting colours, highlighting details, and making certain elements pop. I apply pigment powders around the base with a soft brush, blending different tones together. The paths get one final dry brush. Some of the Mod Podge dried a bit shiny, so I touched those spots up with matte varnish. Finally, I added some grass tufts for that last bit of detail. And there you go, this section of Fangorn Forest is finished. I love how it turned out. It captures the feel of an ancient forest woodland, while still being practical for gaming. You might have noticed I kept most of the paths clear. This is so that models can move at full speed. If they have to move off the path through the trees, that area counts as difficult terrain. Now let's roll into some hero shots and recreate an iconic scene from the Two Towers.
These are strange tracks.
The air's so close in here.
This forest is old. Very old.
The White Wizard approaches.
Do not let him speak. He will put a spell on us.
You are tracking the footsteps of two young hobbits.
Where are they?
They passed this way the day before yesterday. They met someone they did not expect. Does that comfort you?
Show yourself! It cannot be.
Forgive me. I mistook you for Saruman.
I am Saruman. Rather Saruman as he should have been.
You fell.
Through fire and water.
I hope you all enjoyed bringing Fangorn Forest to life for our gaming tables. Until next time, happy modelling.